different part of the couch today because I'm waiting for my controller to charge so I can keep playing video games. But in the meantime, let's read some Dealing with Dragons. And before we start, I have a whole new rant prepared to do with Dealing with Dragons for you guys, and that is on the subject of categories. Some of you may know that I have a bit of a beef with categories. Oh my goodness, Spider, what are you doing? You know, young adult, middle grade, that kind of thing. They are useful. Many people have pointed out that they help you figure out where to put things in a bookstore. You know, it's all helpful, but I am mad because I feel that they are way too rigid. Ooh, my hot water is done. I'm gonna have some hot chocolate after I rant. I think they're too rigid, especially when it comes to the ages of characters. I don't remember it ever saying Cymerine's age in this book, but she comes off as at least in her late teens, like 17 at the youngest, to me, is how she comes off. But this book reads like a middle grade, I feel. Nowadays, we would probably have to call this YA because of Cymerine's age. And I hate that everything is down to the ages of the characters now. It's really annoying if I want to write a story that is written in a style and with a content that is good and fine for teenagers, but the characters are adults. Suddenly it's less likely to be treated as YA, and that annoys the crap out of me, especially since I am one who doesn't like to put the ages of my characters on the page. Don't ask me why, I just don't like to. That's probably not a great idea. I probably should put it out there. But I like to kind of demonstrate their ages through their actions more and how they behave and speak than necessarily be like, and she was 15. The long and short is that it seems to me that we didn't used to be so rigid about the ages of characters and the ages that books were meant for, and I think we need to go back to a time where any character of any age can be in any category of story. Rant over. Now I'm gonna go get my hot chocolate and then I'll start reading. Do you call it hot chocolate or hot cocoa? I call it hot chocolate. My husband calls it hot cocoa. Anyway, let's get back to Dealing with Dragons. Here we go, in which Cymerine and Kazul make a journey underground. This is chapter 7, by the way. If you recall, Cymerine and Kazul were heading out to visit Kazul's witch friend to ask her something, I think for a book, if I remember correctly. It's only been like a day and I've already forgotten. I'm a terrible person. Cymerine decides to take a sword with her because it is dangerous going in this enchanted forest they will be going into. It's super, super like magical. It's a very Jim Henson-y forest. Kazul and Cymerine go through the caves of fire and night, which are very twisty, and her lantern keeps going out and plunging them into utter blackness because it's a cavern of fire and night, and there's all kinds of things for Cymerine to see that Kazul is pointing out, just sort of cool things. And I know that one of the things that she's going to point out is going to be important later, but most other people just reading this book for the first time would not know that. And I like that too, is that you are given some interesting things, but not all of them are necessarily gonna be important later. Like, I know many people will tell you don't ever put anything in your book that isn't 100% important. But I think like finding out about all of these different things within the cave gets your mind going and gets you wondering what could happen later. The thing that is important, I'll tell you right now, you know, obviously we're going through this with spoilers. If I was reading this for the first time, I might have been able to understand that this was more important because it is better described and they actually stop and talk about it more. They come to a cavern with a bunch of tall boulders, and each of them is a prince, except for there's one boulder that's just a boulder. But the rest of them are all enchanted princes, and Kazul explains why. Princes came to steal of the water of healing from the well at the end of the cavern, Kazul said. There are 2 dippers by the well. One is tin, the other is solid gold and covered in jewels. The princes all tried to use the gold one, even though they'd been told that only the tin dipper would work. It's no more than they deserve.
It would not be made out of gold.
That's the cup of a carpenter.
Cimarine is like, yeah, that sounds like princes, but she's also like, man, it would suck to have to be stuck as stone forever, but Kazul reassures her that eventually somebody will come along who does follow directions and will free all of the stone princes. Apparently this is a cycle that happens. Princes come, they're idiots, and then somebody comes along and sets them free. Cimarine does have a momentary thought of doing it herself, but then she remembers that often in like quests and such, there is an order to things, and she hasn't been set on this quest personally, so she probably shouldn't try to do anything with the Water of Life. And I like that element as well in this world where there's sort of a structure to the way that magic works and the way that enchantments work, where Cimarine can't just like come up and join this quest for the Water of Life like halfway through. She has to have been given this quest. Then they pass through what is called the King's Cave, which is where Colin's stone originally came from. The whole cave is made out of this really smooth stone that echoes really bad, and also it vibrates. It's a vibraty cave. So Cimarine and Kazul go through it very quickly, and when she's almost out, Cimarine sees a little bitty rock made out of the same material. And since she hasn't been told not to take it, she does. And that's the end of chapter 7, and I'm gonna stop here because like I just don't have a lot of brain power today. And we will come back with chapter 8 very soon for you guys. Hello everyone, we're back. I'm trying to get comfortable with my pillows. Jane's coming. Oh Lord, he's coming. So we are back with chapter 8, in which Cimarine and Kazul pay a call and Cimarine gets into a fight. We're about halfway through this book already. It's a short book, which is good. I haven't been reading this in a while. It's been a gap for various reasons. Most of them just that I'm super busy, or have been super busy. But one of them also being that like I'm having trouble motivating myself to read this. And I know I say that about every book, but like I just don't feel like I have a lot to say about a book that I enjoy. And I feel like I'm repeating myself, even though I totally repeat myself when I critique a book. I notice it more when I'm praising it, and I don't know why. But I'm going to keep going because I'm a finisher and I'm already halfway through. Hopefully a few people are watching this. It's hard to say whether it's the book, whether I just chose the wrong book for this, or whether this would happen with any book that I enjoy, whether it's because I'm familiar with the book. Yeah, I'm just gonna keep going, and I don't know how, unless you guys love this, I don't know how many more books I love I'm gonna be reading for my read-alongs. We might just stick to having fun, tearing things apart. We'll see. We also might just stick with framing our shots, but probably not. Here's something. Okay, I found a thing to talk about, to praise. It's never explicitly said in this how big the dragons are. We only get a sense of how big they are by how big like their homes are, by the fact that they have to drink Cherry's Jubilee in a bucket. I think it was Cherry's Jubilee. Anyway, you know, they had their desserts in a bucket. It was mousse. It was chocolate mousse. They just talked about coming into the witch's garden, and the trees dwarf even Kazul. So the book gives you an idea of how big the dragons are without telling you how big the dragons are. And I like that. Some people might be frustrated by that. They'd be like, no, I need to know exactly how big this dragon is, or I can't picture it. But I think that this book does a good job of kind of giving you an idea how big the dragons are. And even if you don't like that specifically, I think it's a good lesson about showing, not telling. It can be very tempting, especially if you're writing like a battle or something, to say exactly how far away the enemy is, or how big the giant is, or something like that. But you can show it in a lot of ways and make it more engaging for many people to read. And here, Cimarine has to climb up on a rock to get onto Kazul's back. Again, we don't really know how big the rock is, but we can kind of guess. All of that shows us approximately how big of a dragon we're dealing with. But also allows us to use our imaginations a little bit. Like, my Kazul in my head probably looks different from yours, and that's okay. Also, while I'm on this tangent, they also don't really describe dragons, because I think most people who read fantasy kind of know what dragons look like. It's weird, I had a few alpha readers check out one of my stories that's like literally a first draft, just a super rough first draft. I didn't know if I wanted to even try to do anything with it. And it has wyverns in it, and I kind of assumed that most people knew what wyverns look like, or most people who would be reading my book. But I did have a non-fantasy reader reading it, and they were like, I have no idea what a wyvern looks like. And you don't describe it, you know, in great detail. Like, I mentioned things like the wings and how they move a little bit and stuff like that, and the tails. But I don't ever, like, sit down and describe a wyvern. But so many more people, even non-fantasy readers, know what a dragon looks like. So it is this hard line to walk of when you need to and should describe a creature and how much you want to describe that creature. Because you don't want to over-describe, you don't want to bog people down describing a dragon when 99.9% of your readers know at least what they think a dragon looks like, and that's good enough for this book. And it's a choice we get to make as a reader. I was recently watching a review talking about the Fae and all of the Fae books we have out there, and how many of them don't bother to explain very much about, like, the different courts, the Seelie, Unseelie courts, and that kind of thing. Because I guess they just figure people know, even though maybe they should, like, be more detailed about those things. So that's neither here nor there. That's just something that we as authors need to think about. Are we willing to risk flow of the story to describe something that maybe we don't need to describe because there might be a few readers who don't inherently have a picture of what that is in their heads? It's a balancing act. It's delightful. So the witch is, like, one of the best characters. Obviously, Cimmerine is my favorite. But the witch is great. She has a sign in front of her house that just says, "None of this nonsense, please." And I feel like perhaps I need that sign. Also, she loves cats. Her house is just full of cats. So I may actually be the witch from this story. The cat, a large gray tom, blinked his yellow eyes at Kazul. Then he jumped down from the porch rail and sauntered into the house, his tail held high as if to say, "I'm doing this as a particular favor, mind, and don't you forget it." "He doesn't seem very impressed," Cimmerine commented in some amusement. "Why should he be?" Kazul said. "Well, you're a dragon," Cimmerine answered, a little taken aback. "What difference does that make to a cat?" Yep. Also, Morwen keeps goats. Morwen the witch, so obviously I am Morwen. The interactions between the three women, essentially, of this story, Cimmerine, Morwen, and Kazul, are great. I'm not going to read them all to you or anything, because you should go read this yourself, but just them together, it's so good. Kazul has come into the house and settled down in the kitchen, and 6 cats immediately, like, jump on her and begin, like, sleeping on her and making themselves at home. Kazul says, "I'm widely considered to be unduly suspicious of everyone and everything." Same, Kazul. Same. The gals are talking about the wizards and how Zeminar is stealing the book Historia Draconum, and he's interested in the Caves of Fire and Night, and they're just basically trying to figure out why that is. Interestingly, with these dragons, especially Kazul at the very least, they do hoard treasure, but it almost seems like incidental to them. It's like something that they do, but they're not obsessed with it. They don't lay on a pile of treasure. They just have it. They also have libraries and kitchens and dining rooms and a treasure vault. You know, it's just a thing. Morwen has a book that might help them figure out what the wizards are looking for, and they settle in and they drink some tea and some cider, and then Morwen asks Cimmerine about how her fireproofing spell is going, which is really well, except for the whole hen's teeth problem. Now here comes a scene that is intense, but, like, honestly one of my least favorite, like, brief scenes. Cimmerine and Kazul are heading back to the caves after their meeting with Morwen, and they've gotten back to the cave, and Kazul is like, "I'm gonna go in first, just to make sure there's no nasty surprises waiting for us," because, you know, magical cave. And as Cimmerine is waiting outside to be told to follow, a giant bird attacks her. Fortunately, Cimmerine has her sword, and she done kills it. I do like this. Cimmerine, makes a very awkward, like, slash at the bird. She doesn't even think she's hit anything until she hears it, like, wail. And it says, "Thanking all her lucky stars individually and by name." I like that. Cimmerine does remind us that her sword is magic, so it wasn't really through any of her own, like, prowess that she killed the bird, but more like she just kind of ducked and covered and the sword did the actual hitting. So the bird's gonna die, and it's like, okay, you slew me, so you get, like, my forfeit, which is like an item from me, because magical rules, I guess. And Cimmerine's like, I don't really want that, and Kazul's like, no, you should take whatever he offers you. And the bird gives her some MacGuffins, and this is why I don't quite like this scene. It kind of comes out of nowhere, it's really short, it's apropos of nothing, but it gives Cimarine some items that she'll probably need later in her adventures. And of all of the things in this book that so artfully set up for future things, this one is the least well done in my opinion. She gets 3 black feathers. If you drop one and wish to be somewhere, you will find yourself there in the twinkling of an eye. Teleportation feathers. Fortunately, we are also given a bit of a hand-waving to this bird being dead, because Kazula's like, don't feel bad about killing it, it was going to feed you to its babies. And then Cimarine's like, well, won't the babies starve? And Kazula's like, no, the other parent will take care of them until they're old enough. And so it's all like, yep, this bird dying means absolutely nothing. You just now have 3 magical feathers. If this was a Tamara Pierce book, Cimarine would 1000% end up taking care of 3 obnoxious baby birds. Alright, we're going to go on to chapter 9, which I don't know how long it is, but I just want to keep going. It's pretty long. Oh dear. It's fine. It's fine. In which Thorindel is a dreadful nuisance and Cimarine casts a spell. Cimarine is tired from her day, so she doesn't want to clean, so she goes into the treasure room and starts looking through and sorting through all of the various bottles. She sets aside the ones that have lead stoppers because she knows that those are not good to open, and she takes the rest into another room to check out what might be in them. And then, as she's doing this, there's good old Thorindel at the door again. Thorindel does get a few points. He's kind of an insufferable jerk, but also, when he heard that Cimarine was injured, he did not go, oh, I can't rescue her for a month. He actually came to check on her just now. Of course, he heard the night exaggerated and her sprained ankle has turned into a broken leg. But Thorindel gets a few points for actually coming to make sure she was okay. He's still an insufferable jerk, but hey. Cimarine even realizes that she's being a little bit of a hypocrite. She's annoyed with Thorindel because he's still determined to rescue her, but she feels annoyed with herself for being annoyed at him because he's really only doing his best. Like, he's doing his best. He's doing what he's supposed to do, he was raised to do. He's just trying. And while that's annoying to her, she feels a little bad that she's pissed off that that's what he's doing because, like, he doesn't know anything else, really. You guys know that I have a soft spot for the adorable idiot characters in these stories, and I think Thorindel's a little bit that sometimes. So he follows her into the kitchen, and she begins to sort through the jars, just like, come on in, whatever, if you want to talk to me, but I'm gonna work while you do. He even offers to help. He's not a total failure of a man. Cimarine realizes that Thorindel's about to open a jar with the lead stopper, which she's like, I specifically didn't take any with lead stoppers, but now this one is here. Suspicious. And, of course, Thorindel accidentally opens it, and suddenly there's a mostly naked man, just like in their house. This giant man in a loincloth and a turban. And it's a djinn. Surprise, surprise.
10,000 years will give you such a crick in the neck.
Cimarine is salty to the end, and I love it. So the djinn is like, I am the instrument of thy death and that of thy paramour. And Cimarine's like, fucking what? And he's like, the dude beside you, he's your lover, right? And she's like, he isn't my lover or my fiance or my boyfriend or anything, and I refuse to be killed with him. Turn down for what? Cimarine keeps shading Thorindel, and he's just like, he's doing a little bit of puppy dog thing. He's just like, but why? Why are you being so mean to me? Cimarine, again, one of the reasons I love Cimarine is that she's a fast thinker. She's snappy. And so the djinn is like, thou hast but to choose the manner of thy death, and Cimarine immediately says, old age. Cimarine and Thorindel are arguing back and forth, and the djinn is like, hello? Gonna kill you, but he's like, don't you want to know why? And Cimarine's like, fucking no. But, of course, Thorindel's like, yeah, I do. So now the djinn is going to tell them his story. So he rebelled against the rules of the djinn, and he was trapped in a bottle. And he swore that whoso should release me during the first 100 years of my imprisonment, I would make ruler of the earth. Whoso should release me during the second 100 years, I would make rich beyond all dreams of men. Whoso shall release me during the third 100 years, I should grant 3 wishes. And whoso should release me after a longer span of time, I should grant only the choice of what death he would die. And Cimarine is like, you're going to kill us because it's traditional. Cimarine is anti-tradition, as we have established. And then Cimarine figures out that he's cheating. He's only been in the jar 217 years, but he just like really wanted to kill somebody.
I said, shrink, I want to kill. I want to kill. I want to see blood, gore, and guts and veins in my teeth.
So Cimarine, again, the fast-thinking queen, she's got a handle on this. The Djinn doesn't want to give them 3 wishes, and he doesn't want to go back to his people in disgrace. He just wants to, like, kill her and then go back and be like, yeah, I killed them. What of it? And Cimarine's like, but because if he killed them, he would be disobeying the customs of his people, so he can't, he's in a catch-22. And Cimarine's like, or you could just go back in the jar for the amount of years that it would take for you to be allowed to kill the next people that open the jar. And by then, we'll be dead of old age, which is the death I asked for anyway. Thranduil's like, excuse me, but what about wishes? And Cimarine's like, shut up, I just got him to leave. But the Djinn decides to give them 1 wish. Thranduil immediately wishes to defeat a dragon and win his princess's hand in marriage. He's not specific, and everybody knows that you should be specific when making wishes. Cimarine uses her wish to wish for powdered hen's teeth. She doesn't even ask for the finished fireproof potion, she asks for the last ingredient she needs. Cimarine, of course, points out that Thranduil was not specific about his wish, and he's like, oh poop. And she's like, there are other princesses here who have been dragon captives much longer than me, and they would be happy to be rescued by a prince like you. Maybe go rescue one of them. So he goes for it, she points out the cave, and he's off to rescue a different princess. And that, by the way, is how you resolve a side plot. Cimarine, again, she's a thinker, she writes a note on the jar that the Djinn is in that they shouldn't open it until the amount of years had gone by. Unfortunately, Cimarine does shade one of the other princesses. I wish she didn't do that. Alienora comes over, her friend, and she shows her the, warning that she made, the warning label she made, and she's like, is this clear enough? And Alienora's like, yep, it is. But Cimarine's like, maybe I should show it to one of the other dumb princesses to see if they understand it, and I'm not so into that, Cimarine. Don't give other women a hard time like that. For a second, Cimarine is worried that she should have sent Thranduil to rescue Alienora, but Alienora's like, no, he doesn't sound like my type, so all is well. And now they're gonna do the fireproofing spell. They do the spell, they think it worked, they're gonna go perform tests, but that's all going to happen in Chapter 10, which I am going to be reading next time I get to reading. We're making progress. We're on page 128, so we are making progress in this book. I did find things to talk about. There was some of my favorite scenes, one of my least favorite scenes, but we'll make it. We'll get there. I gripe a lot, but we'll get there. Did someone say patrons? It was me. I said patrons. Just now. Try to keep up. This month's patrons are Adrienne, Lennox, Amanda, Irene, Jenny, Jesper, Lisa, Ryakio, Sabby Panda, Savvy, Scribbling Cat, and Zaire. And thanks again to all of my amazing patrons for all their support. I especially appreciate that you're able to stick around in these interesting times.